Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's Climate Business Plan Community Meeting webinar. Renewable Natural Gas, what is it? Thanks to all who took the time to join us this evening and attend virtually. I'm Marie Johns, a longtime resident, employer, and community volunteer in the District of Columbia, and I am honored to serve as your moderator for this evening. And for quite a few years, I've also served as a consultant partner with Washington Gas on local community affairs and policy matters. You may remember me from our last virtual community meeting in January, and I'm delighted to have been invited to come back tonight. Before we get started, it's a common practice of Washington Gas to begin meetings with a safety minute, to share tips and guidelines about safety. It is a deeply embedded part of the culture and core value of safety as a top priority for this company. So I'd like to introduce someone who is perfect for providing the safety minute this evening, and that's Deshandra Jones, who's Senior Director of Customer Experience and Stakeholder Engagement for Washington Gas. Good evening, Deshandra.
Good evening, all. I'm having just a little bit of difficulty with the video, but I'm glad that you can hear me. Thank you again for joining us this evening. I'll take 1 or 2 moments to deliver our safety minute. This message is timely and it's relevant and is focused on safety in the sun. As individuals begin to venture outside in what is arguably the hottest time of the year, and I for one have to say I do love this time of the year, it's more important than ever to focus on being safe while enjoying this weather. According to the Center for Disease Control, the sun's UV rays can damage your skin in as little as 15 moments. The rays are strongest between 9 a.m. and 4 p.m., and research says once the UV index begins to creep above 3, you really should focus on protecting yourself. To protect yourself this summer, here are some recommended sun-safe habits. Check the UV index daily. You can do this by watching the news, going to the NOAA website, or simply Googling it. Stay hydrated while outdoors. Drink before you feel thirsty. I'm sure we've all heard that by the time you do feel thirsty, you're already behind in fluid replacement. And dehydration is a primary contributor to heat exhaustion. So remember to stay hydrated. Additionally, sunscreen, an SPF of 15 and some research says 30 or higher is recommended. You want to stay in the shade. You want to wear loose-fitting clothing and if possible, long sleeves and long pants. You want to wear a hat, and actually wearing a hat provides the most protection. And then you want to wear sunglasses. In summary, I would say just remember the 5 S's. Seek shade, slip on protective clothing, slather on sunscreen, slap on a hat, and slide on some sunglasses. Thank you for indulging me, and I wish you all a wonderfully safe summer. Marie, back over to you.
Thank you, Deshandra. And with these extremely hot 90-degree summer days, we can't be too careful. So please protect yourselves. Now, please allow me to take a moment to set the stage and refresh on why we're all here. Last year, Washington Gas filed its climate business plan with the District of Columbia to demonstrate how Washington Gas can support our city's carbon reduction goals of lowering greenhouse gas emissions by 50% by the year 2032 and to become carbon neutral by 2050. Renewable natural gas, or RNG, is an innovative part of the core pillars in the plan that this interactive session aims to explore, explain, and most importantly, simplify. In general terms, RNG is a natural gas derived from organic waste, from landfills, food, animals, our homes, wastewater, garden and lawn clippings, plant-based material, among other things, that is turned into a biofuel. Because it prevents greenhouse gases from escaping into the atmosphere and uses them to provide energy, this is a very attractive option for many communities. But I leave it to our seasoned experts coming up in the program to educate us more. You'll be provided a general update on progress with the climate business plan from members of Washington Gas's leadership team. These meetings, and this is the third in the series, are a part of Washington Gas's commitment to provide biannual updates on progress towards its climate business plan. We hope to one day soon do them in person. So what to expect this evening? Tonight's lineup includes 2 brief videos, followed by a live Q&A session using the Zoom Q&A feature, not chat, the Q&A feature, with expert panelists ready to answer your questions about RNG. This format is in response to feedback from our 2 previous meetings. It ensures we keep to our agenda and allows ample time for the more interactive portions of the meeting, including answering your questions about RNG. Housekeeping. Before we begin the program, there are some quick housekeeping items. Should you have questions during the presentations, go ahead and begin submitting them using the Q&A feature, and we'll open the floor for questions right after the videos. All microphones are automatically on mute and cameras are disabled. If our audio or video features are not coming through clearly, please message us through the Q&A feature. So now let's begin. For our first video, Blue Jenkins, President of Washington Gas, and Melissa Adams, Corporate Social Responsibility Officer for Washington Gas, update us on progress with the plan, including insight into RNG. Let's listen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Blue Jenkins, President of Washington Gas. For more than 170 years, we have been providing safe, reliable, and affordable energy to the District of Columbia. Today, we proudly serve more than 1.2 million customers across Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. Our mission is to improve quality of life by safely and reliably connecting customers to affordable sources of energy today and tomorrow. We have a vast energy infrastructure that delivers natural gas service today. As our energy needs continue to evolve over the next decades, we are committed to continue to be a critical part of our district's energy future. Last year, Washington Gas filed an innovative, comprehensive climate business plan that will help the District of Columbia achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, while continuing to ensure that district residents have access to safe, reliable, and affordable energy. Our plan focuses on 3 core pillars: increasing energy efficiency in our customers' homes and offices, modernizing our infrastructure so we can continue delivering safe and reliable energy while reducing emissions, and including lower carbon-free fuels like renewable natural gas and hydrogen in our energy mix. I encourage you to learn more about our plan at our website, washingtongascbp.com. Tonight, we're going to dive into one of the pillars as we explore the topic of renewable natural gas with a panel of experts who will be taking your questions. We're also here to give you a brief overall progress report on our plan as well. So before we jump into the discussion, I want to ask Melissa Adams, our Chief Corporate Social Responsibility Officer, to fill you in on what's been happening since our last community meeting in January. Melissa?
Thank you, Blue. As Blue mentioned, the first of our 3 pillars focuses on energy efficiency, and we gave you a briefing on that last January. We are trying to help our customers reduce their energy use while also reducing their emissions. And one of the key tactics we're promoting is combined heat and power. This is a technology that generates electricity and then repurposes the waste heat for heating. Since then, I'm pleased to report that we've been involved in a project in Southeast Washington that is going to help 576 customers get access to this new technology. Combined heat and power offers many benefits. Besides reducing energy use and lowering emissions, it's locally generated electricity that reduces strain on the grid, enhances reliability and resiliency.
Sounds like combined heat and power offers some great benefits for our customers. And as I understand it, there are several more projects coming down the pike as well. So why don't we talk a little bit about accelerated infrastructure replacement? Why don't you give us an update on that?
Sure. Our accelerated replacement programs like Project Pipes in the District of Columbia help us modernize our infrastructure system and preserve the 99% reliability rate that we're known for. At the same time, it offers benefits of reducing our emissions. So since we started the projects, we've replaced about 410 miles of mains, which has helped reduce about 400,000 tons of carbon emissions. And that's the equivalent of taking about 87,000 cars off the road. So we're thrilled with the progress we're making there, while we also maintain our reliability and contribute to the resilience of the energy infrastructure in the district. In addition, I'm really excited about some of the technology that we're exploring to enhance the operation of our systems. And that includes the use of satellites to better pinpoint and identify leaks on the system much more efficiently. And it offers great promise. We can see what's going on below ground. We can see vegetation perhaps that might be dying off, which gives us a signal. And these eyes in the sky have great potential for the future. We are encouraged that we might be able to determine leak rates and flows. So we are pursuing this conversation very aggressively and hope to be reporting back on something at one of our later meetings.
That's great. Thank you, Melissa. So as I understand it, modernizing the system, keeping our infrastructure highly available and increasing our reliability, and then also using advanced technology to continue the progress. That's great. So Melissa, one of our 3 pillars is about sourcing our supply. Can you give me an update on how that's going?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Another area that I'm very proud where we're making great progress is in sourcing and supply. We put a RFP, a request for proposals, out on something called certified gas, which means that that is geologic gas that's extracted really to the highest environmental standards and is even monitored on the ground for emissions in real time. So we know that we're getting what we paid for. And the responses have been very encouraging. We're evaluating them now. We hope to make a purchase and announce it very soon and really to start flowing that gas over the summer. And I'm so pleased with where we're headed.
As I understand it, there's a lot of headlines around this. So that's independently certified by a third party. And so we have something we can rely on that somebody else has said you are, to use your words, getting what we paid for.
Exactly.
So pivoting from certified natural gas to renewable natural gas, or RNG, our focus topic for tonight, can you give me an update on that?
Sure, Blue. I'm really happy to report that since we last met, actually in May, we announced that we entered into our first renewable natural gas project. And so, as you know, in combustion, renewable natural gas is 0 or carbon-free emissions. And this is at the Piscataway project up in Maryland. And it really harnesses that waste energy for productive energy. And currently, the contractual arrangement is pending before the Maryland Public Service Commission, but we are very encouraged and confident that it will be approved. And this will be our first project where we are leveraging our infrastructure and facilities to make use of this highly efficient source of energy, hopefully the first of many.
Thank you, Melissa. That's fantastic. We actually have a little clip from Robert Taylor at WSSC to give us a little more insight about the project.
Well, WSSC is a water and wastewater utility, and we treat 70 million gallons a day of wastewater. Although our plant is local at Piscataway in Accokeek, Maryland, the RNG production really applies to any substantial wastewater treatment plant in the area, the whole DMV area. And inherent in wastewater is renewable natural gas, which can be formed by anaerobically digesting the wastewater. And it's been shown that there's 5 times the amount of energy in wastewater as is necessary to treat the wastewater. So it's an important asset. It's an environmental gain as well as an economic gain.
Thanks, Robert. That's a great update. We are thrilled to be partnering with WSSC Water, and our confidence is a sign of more RNG for the DMV region to come. These are the main climate business plan updates we wanted to share. We're proud of the work we have done so far, and we look forward to more work ahead to keep the momentum going. Thanks to our Washington Gas team members, industry partners, local officials, and other collaborators for working together on this journey. Engaging with the community is what this meeting is all about. So with that, let's go back to Marie Johns to continue our program, including industry expert panelists to discuss RNG and to take your questions. Marie?
Thank you, Blue and Melissa, for that great update. And thank you, Rob, for the WSSC perspective. Melissa and Rob will be on our panel later this evening, so we'll be hearing more from them. If you have questions, start submitting them now through the Q&A feature. It would not be a meeting that asks the question, what is it, without featuring an industry expert who can answer that question and talk through the ins and outs of RNG at a high level. And so we're delighted this evening to share the following short video interview with Sam Lair, Manager of Sustainability and Markets Policy for the RNG Coalition, to give us the basics.
Hello, everyone. I'm Brian Edwards, Chief Communications Officer for Washington Gas. I'm pleased to be joined today with Sam Lair, the Manager of Sustainability and Markets Policy for the Coalition of Renewable Natural Gas. Sam, thanks so much for joining me today.
Thanks, Brian. Happy to be here today to talk a little bit about our organization and what our industry is doing to decarbonize the waste and energy sectors.
Yes, it's going to be great just to give our attendees today a quick overview of what is renewable natural gas, so they have a nice even level set of what this information is about and what our conversation is going to be today. So let's start out. What is renewable natural gas?
So renewable natural gas is produced by recycling the methane emissions from organic waste, creating a form of renewable energy which is a one-for-one substitute for conventional natural gas. Human activity produces organic waste in many forms: food waste, wastewater, and animal and plant waste from food production. Globally, greenhouse gas emissions from this waste are a significant contributor to climate change. Reducing the amount of waste we produce is the first step in resolving these issues, but what remains must be dealt with in an environmentally beneficial way. RNG is an important part of that solution, reducing carbon emissions and other environmental impacts in both the waste and energy sectors. This is not a new concept. The RNG industry has operated in the US since 1982, receiving continual support from environmental and energy regulators for its important environmental benefits. As we look to fully mitigate the climate and other environmental impacts of our society's organic waste and energy systems, RNG continues to grow in popularity as a renewable energy option.
Thanks, Sam, for that overview of what is RNG. Tell us a little bit more about how it works.
So as I mentioned previously, organic waste naturally decompose and release methane and other biogases. RNG production involves capturing this methane, which is a potent greenhouse gas, keeping it out of the atmosphere, and cleaning the biogas to full interchangeability with conventional natural gas. Once biogas is cleaned to RNG, it performs just like the natural gas we're used to getting at our homes and businesses. However, instead of extracting carbon from under the ground, organic materials grow using carbon which is part of the existing carbon cycle, meaning that RNG is carbon neutral at the point of combustion. And once it's injected into the existing gas pipeline system, it can be used without having to change or upgrade any of the equipment people already use, making it an important and immediate solution for the gas sector.
That's a really important point about being able to use all of our existing pipeline and equipment to inject it into the system. So tell us a little bit more about the role that RNG plays as a low carbon fuel and how it contributes to combating climate change.
RNG is carbon neutral at the point of combustion because it recycles carbon that's part of the natural carbon cycle. And when looked at from a cradle to grave perspective, is often considered carbon negative, where it eliminates upstream methane emissions. It's a substitute for conventional natural gas in any application and helps solve the greenhouse gas emissions and other environmental impacts of organic waste. RNG provides great potential for those who use gaseous fuels, the transportation sector, industrial operations, and everyday customers served by gas utilities. Exploring how this truly circular, waste-derived resource can be used with existing gas infrastructure is an important step toward achieving carbon neutrality as soon as possible, and part of gas utilities' responsibility to contribute to cleaner energy solutions.
So Sam, another potential benefit of RNG is the fact that it deals with increasing amounts of waste that we're seeing as a result of global population. Is that right?
That's correct, Brian. The UN projects a 25% growth in global population by 2050. The World Bank is expecting a 69% increase in municipal solid waste by 2050, half of which is organic material. And according to EPA, decomposing waste already accounts for 26% of US methane emissions. RNG is part of the solution for cleaning up all of those sectors.
Thanks, Sam, for this very insightful overview of RNG and how we can be using it as a way to reduce methane emissions. And now we're going to go back to Marie Johns and begin our panel discussion.
All right. How about that panel? Thank you, Brian, and thank you, Sam. So now I'm happy to welcome the three familiar faces that you've just seen on video. Welcome back, Melissa, Rob, and
Great.
thank you again for the good information that you shared this evening. And I want to thank the audience. We've got questions coming in. We've had questions coming in throughout the video period. So that's great. Really appreciate the engagement of our audience. So Melissa, you get the first question, and it is, I know this meeting is focused on RNG, but how do you see it fitting into the overall energy mix?
Okay, thanks, Maria. That's a great question. RNG is one of several tactics that we envision supporting our climate business plan. In fact, if I recall correctly, we believe that its utilization will help us reduce carbon emissions by about 13% by 2032 and account for maybe 31% or so of reductions in later years through 2050. We see it as a very important strategy. It's interchangeable with natural gas, so it has a lot of the same beneficial properties and attributes that natural gas has. It can be stored and it's available in a moment's notice, and that storage is really important because unlike some of the challenges faced by renewable electricity that depends on sort of small quantity, short duration batteries, we can store for days, weeks, or months at a time. And we can also use this renewable natural gas to support and promote the use of renewable electricity for similar reasons. And similarly, it can be paired, say, in hybrid heating systems with renewable electricity, so that when, say, on the very cold days, when you need to transition to a sort of peak demand supply, you could instead depend on renewable natural gas. And see, another benefit we see in particular for renewable natural gas is the contribution it can make to decarbonizing the transportation sector, which actually accounts for more carbon emissions in the district than gas. Transportation contributes about 23% of our emissions in the district, and it's a very tough sector to decarbonize. So particularly with heavy vehicles, buses, trash, and other vehicles, we can actually use renewable natural gas for that purpose as well. So we think it's versatile and has many benefits in the energy mix.
Thank you, Melissa. So Rob, WSSC, it's a water and wastewater utility. What in the world are you doing in the business of generating and selling RNG?
Well, that's a good question, Marie. WSSC collects about 140 million gallons a day of wastewater. We treat 70 of that, and we send the other 70 to Blue Plains. So inherent in that wastewater treatment, the conventional wastewater treatment is the byproduct is the solids material, which we affectionately call biosolids. And that biosolids is a rich energy source, and that rich energy source is, we look at it as an asset. We used to call our wastewater treatment plants just that. And now we have renamed the wastewater treatment plants water reuse recovery facilities, because as I mentioned in the video, the energy inherent in wastewater is 5 times the energy that it takes to treat it. So the renewable natural gas is a byproduct of the anaerobic digestion process in the bioenergy plant, taking the raw biosolids and breaking it down and creating methane, and then we treat the methane to enable a pipeline quality gas. So in other words, if I can wind this question up, the response, our wastewater has become a valuable asset instead of a liability. We used to take the biosolids and spread it on land application for farms in the Maryland, Virginia area, and the restrictions the legislation has become very prohibitive in Maryland, and we think it's going to become very prohibitive in Virginia. So it's becoming more and more expensive to spread the biosolids on farmland. And through the process of anaerobic digestion, we can create methane, not only create methane and clean up to renewable natural gas, but we can reduce the quantity of biosolids and end up with a class A, what EPA calls a class A pathogen-free biosolids. And we can make a fertilizer which can be sold in your Home Depots and your Lowe's and other landscaping outfits, similar to what Blue Plains is doing in DC.
That's great. Thank you, Rob. That's fascinating. And also great to hear that we're able to check several very important boxes at one time. So thanks for educating us. All right, Sam, round one question for you. How does the RNG industry view their role in achieving economy-wide carbon neutrality by 2050?
Sure, thanks, Marie. So we view RNG really as a complement to other energy and waste sector decarbonization strategies such as composting, electrification. And so really the benefit is that the existing gas infrastructure.
Your answer, we're getting a echo. Perhaps if Rob and Krista don't mind, that may help. Make sure we have the best quality so we can hear your good answer. All right, thank you. Continue.
Thanks. Sorry about that. So the existing gas infrastructure currently provides 34% of the total energy consumed in every U.S. sector. So it makes sense that in a carbon neutral future, even as gas throughput declines, some of that infrastructure will be repurposed to facilitate the use of carbon neutral fuels such as RNG and green hydrogen. Furthermore, studies conducted by leading consultants such as Energy and Environmental Economics and ICF, which model pathways to energy system carbon neutrality in 2050 at the state level for New York and California and others, consistently show the full utilization of all possible RNG resources throughout sectors in all of their scenarios. Another good resource, if you're interested in learning more about RNG and the type of future envisioned here, is Columbia University's recently released study, which shows the long-term benefits of investing in the gas system using renewable and low-carbon gaseous fuels for part of that. So our industry is not claiming to be a panacea for decarbonizing the natural gas sector, but we know that the full circularity of RNG production, the ability to utilize the existing gas system in a beneficial way, and the ancillary benefits in both the waste and energy sectors can be realized through the use of RNG. And that makes it an important part of the energy mix.
Thank you, Sam. I'm sorry we're having a little issue with your sound, but perhaps we can get that corrected down the line. So I have a question for everyone on the panel. So Melissa, we'll head back to you to take the first crack at it. So far, what percentage of feedstock into your RNG is municipal solid waste?
Well, I can answer that as far as WSSC goes. There's no municipal solid waste entering into our feedstock. It's all biosolids from the solids processing of the wastewater and wastewater treatment plants. However, in the bioenergy plant, we do have a plan in the future to inject food waste from restaurants and also fats, oils, and grease from restaurants, which traditionally has been dumped into the sewer system, creating huge backups and clogs. So it's a dual benefit.
And Marie, if I can add to that, so Piscataway, as we mentioned, is our first connected project, and we're really excited about it. But in the RNG study that was done for us by ICF, they did identify a number of local landfills and other resources, in addition to wastewater recovery facilities like Piscataway and Blue Plains. So we do see a lot of potential capability from solid waste as well.
That's great. Again, an example of taking something that had previously been a detriment, major detriment to the environment, to turn it into something that is useful for all of us.
Yeah, and if I might add to that, a lot of these waste facilities, while many of them do capture emissions, the smaller ones actually are not required to do so. So when you can repurpose that and really capture those emissions and avoid their release and then put them to use productively, it's really a win-win.
Yeah, certainly is. Thanks, Melissa and Rob, for that. Okay, Rob, back to you. Regarding WSSC, what chemicals are you using to produce biogas? Is that a part of your process to use chemical accelerators, et cetera?
Actually, it isn't. The raw biosolids is injected in a thermal hydrolysis pre-treatment process, which is like a pressure cooker. It breaks down the biological cells, and then that effluent is cooled and it's injected into an anaerobic digester at fairly high pressure and high temperature to create the methane. So basically no chemicals are used in the process. It's all biological and temperature and pressure related.
That's a great answer. Thank you. All right, Melissa, back to you. Is there enough RNG available to meet the offset need? And if not, how will Washington Gas go about developing the renewable natural gas that we need for Washington, D.C.?
So that's a good question, Marie. And again, referring back to, we did have an outside consulting firm, ICF, evaluate what resources were available, both within our footprint and then regionally. And they determined that locally, there were within the WGL footprint sufficient resources to displace about a third of our geologic gas. And then the beauty of it is, since we are really a connected system regionally and actually nationally, we also have the ability to contract for supply for, that's not immediately within our footprint, although that really is a strong preference of ours to try to develop and harness regional waste for productive use.
All right, great. Thanks, Melissa. And forgive me for fiddling a bit. We've got so many great questions coming from the audience that I'm just trying to make sure we're sorting through and getting to all the panelists. So Sam, this one is for you. RNG is described as ranging carbon intensity from low carbon to carbon negative. Let me try that again. RNG is described as ranging from carbon intensity from low carbon to carbon negative. So what does that mean and how is that possible?
Thanks, Marie, and hopefully the echo's a little bit better this time. So first, it's important to understand that RNG contains biogenic carbon, which is derived from organic waste materials, mainly plants, which end up in a landfill or as human or animal waste. And so that waste actually sequesters atmospheric carbon as it grows. And for this reason, RNG use does not add carbon to the Earth's natural carbon cycle and is therefore considered carbon neutral at point of use. So the best resource outlining carbon emissions accounting in this manner is World Resources Institute's Greenhouse Gas Protocol, which incorporates long-standing knowledge surrounding the use of biologically derived fuels. RNG is considered low carbon to carbon negative when assessed from a life cycle standpoint. So in other words, taking into account all of the emission sources and sinks from cradle to grave. So in many cases, RNG production captures methane, which would otherwise be released into the atmosphere, and that gives it a negative emissions profile. In cases where methane management is already required, as is the case with most landfills, there's a smaller avoided methane credit. and RNG is therefore considered low carbon, mainly because of the energy consumed during the production process. And so this means that as the electricity grid is fully decarbonized, the energy used to produce RNG will also be decarbonized, and the carbon intensity of that RNG will move closer and closer to zero. Furthermore, if carbon capture systems are implemented in tandem with renewable natural gas, it can have a negative emissions profile. And so bioenergy resources like RNG are the only carbon negative energy resources because it involves that ability to actually capture the biogenic carbon, which is already carbon neutral. I know that's a pretty wonky subject, but hopefully helpful there as an answer.
Thanks so much, Sam. Such great information. Again, apologize for the sound quality. I'm hoping that, as I'll explain later, we're going to have a video, an audio archive of the information. Hopefully we can fix that at that time, because really good stuff, Sam. Thank you. All right. So, Rob, will there be additional opportunities for RNG production at WSSC?
Well, since we are planning to transport the biosolids from our 4 other wastewater treatment plants or water resource recovery facilities to the Piscataway site to consolidate the production and the production of RNG, we don't have any plans for a new plant. But as I mentioned before, we plan in the future to add food waste and fats, oils, and grease, which can really boost the production of RNG, and it can further decrease the amount of biosolids left over from the process to be used as fertilizer.
Thank you, Rob. Melissa, RNG available locally to displace 1/3 of locally needed geologic gas, is that all captured waste gas, or would that eventually include produced methane? You're on mute. Shall I repeat, Melissa?
Sure. Well, I think I understood the question.
Let me read the question one more time.
Okay.
For your benefit. The RNG available locally to displace 1/3 of locally needed geologic gas, is that all captured waste gas, or would that eventually include produced methane?
It's captured waste gas from local facilities. As we look to the future, again, if that should not pan out locally, we think we can acquire renewable natural gas from sources connected to the pipelines. And then the plan also anticipates another very interesting source of renewable gas that is not biogenic, but would be produced from actually waste electricity, if you will, from renewable solar and wind plants that may need to get curtailed. And so that's definitely down the road a little ways, but that also anticipates the production of renewable hydrogen or green hydrogen, but that is not part of the 33% that I just mentioned. That would be in addition to that. So.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, Melissa, I'm going to stick with you for this next question. It just went away. There we go. What are your plans to build out hydrogen infrastructure in the DMV region, in our area, to allow for light, medium, and heavy duty fuel cell electric vehicles to have refueling options where there are really none today?
Okay, so we are in the process of holding many discussions with technology providers. We're very excited about the Biden administration sort of moonshot hydrogen programs. So lots and lots of discussion, exploration occurring, because yes, we are aware that This doesn't currently exist, and we would love to see it exist and bring it to light. In fact, we're quite interested in, maybe showcasing some vehicles ourselves. We have a little petting zoo, if you will, of some renewable applications, advanced applications. We were early on with solid oxide fuel cells, and having hydrogen fuel cell vehicles would be awesome. There's also discussion occurring with respect to interest in using this in some local bus fleets, and again, producing RNG or hosting sites or doing it with others such that the hydrogen would be available for perhaps maybe mass transit. So nothing yet, but
Can you hazard a guess on time frame? When should we keep our?
Sooner is better, but I don't want to inflate expectations at this point. But there's a very clear interest, and there's so much promising activity happening on the hydrogen front that, again, I'm hoping that it's much sooner rather than later. So
Sooner. That's good. Thank you. All right. Sam mentioned that electrification is part of the solution. So how can RNG work in tandem with renewable electricity to help reduce emissions? So is that a Sam and Melissa response? Who wants to?
Sure, you can.
I can go first. That's a great question. So basically what we see is pretty large existing gas infrastructure that serves a lot of end uses. And as time goes on, we'll see more electrification of some of those end uses, but there's some end uses which are well served by gaseous fuels, including RNG and renewable hydrogen. So the ability to put carbon neutral, carbon negative fuels into the pipeline and continue to utilize that pipeline for its reliability and high heat capabilities is important.
Thanks.
If I could.
Anything to add?
Yeah, sure. For example, we see a fair amount of hybrid heating where you might combine a electric air source heat pump, and it would operate nicely during moderate temperatures, and then you may need to have another energy source during peak demand, very cold times. And so it would be awesome if the gas that was used for the peak was then renewable natural gas. So you would have a 100% renewable thermal source available to you. So we see a number of complementary uses for both renewable natural gas and renewable electricity.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is an open question. If we're not creating new renewable natural gas, how is that carbon neutral?
I'll go ahead and answer that one. So I think there's a little bit of a misunderstanding there. It's important to sort of conceptualize how the carbon that's being released when RNG is combusted is carbon that's part of the existing carbon cycle. So you're not creating or destroying carbon. You're actually destroying the methane, which would otherwise either be burned on site at a facility that requires it, such as a landfill, or would otherwise escape directly into the atmosphere as a very potent greenhouse gas. So in the best case scenario, you're destroying methane, which would otherwise be released in the atmosphere. In the other scenarios, you're switching the point of combustion of that methane, but you're not creating or adding any new carbon to the atmosphere.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Anyone, Rob, Melissa, anything to add?
I don't have anything to add to that, to Sam's comment. That was very, very well put.
Yes, it was. All right, thank you. So Rob, if you didn't have anything to add to that question, then I have another one for you. So why is renewable natural gas planned to be sold to a third party instead of used internally as fuel for new engine generations or generators, excuse me?
Well, that's a very good question, Marie, and we get asked that a lot. Renewable natural gas, when used as a transportation fuel, is and sold to a third party for transportation, can generate renewable fuel credits known as RINs, Renewable Information Numbers, and generate substantial income. The RIN market is set by the EPA. It was created in 2005, amended in 2014, and targets the oil refineries. It requires the oil refineries to buy a certain number of RINs, which one RIN is equal to a gallon of ethanol equivalent, and requires the refineries to buy a certain number of RINs per year. And that sets the market, and the market in the last couple of years has really jumped up. And so the bottom line is it's simply more economical to sell the RINs and the RNG and generate RINs for sale than to use the RNG as fuel for the new engine generators. So our plan is to utilize natural gas to fuel the new engine generators and sell the renewable natural gas. But we do have, the plan is also designed, if the RIN market should ever tank or be abolished for some reason, we have the ability to use the RNG as fuel for our engine generators.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, Rob, if you see down the road if that equation may change to make it more economically viable to use the resource.
Right.
So it sounds like you're watching for that.
Yes, we've designed the plan with that consideration in mind. Right.
All right, thank you. All right, Melissa, is Washington Gas putting other RFPs out for RNG development at the ICF identified or other potential RNG sites?
So we don't have any RFPs out right now, but we do have a number of ongoing discussions with other partners, and generally we need to talk to each other, especially within the jurisdiction, because there's often a infrastructure connection that's required. And we also we do a lot with respect to checking the gas quality. And that was one of the things we've done recently too. And in fact, Robert's program kind of generated this, which is we do a lot with compatibility standards to make sure that anything that's coming into the system is compatible. So we haven't put out an RFP, but we do have a number of ongoing conversations and are very interested and seeking supply and eager to engage in those conversations.
Okay, great. So I think one of the most important things you said was, let's talk, if people have some, want to get involved in that game. So thank you. So when can customers expect to be able to subscribe to a renewable gas tariff at Washington, similar to a renewable electricity tariff on the electricity side? I think that's you, Melissa.
Yeah, I think that's probably me, Marie. So we actually, the DC Public Service Commission recently issued an order wherein they asked us to come forward with a timeline for a number of our proposals. So to really bring to light, to actualize the tactics and items we outlined in the plan. So we will be filing that in September. We do expect, and it is in the plan, that we would like to layer in renewable natural gas as part of the gas supply we have, but that layers in over time. So it's pretty modest to start. But we would also like to make available something like a green tariff or a choice program where those that would like to purchase greater amounts of renewable natural gas would be enabled to do so. And so that is another element in the timetable that we will propose, much like early days of renewable electricity, where you could, sign up for additional amounts than were available on the grid. So that's something we would, be pushing as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So Sam, does the RNG Coalition have projections or estimates for RNG adoption by customers?
Sure. So it's a tough question because RNG can serve so many different sectors, right? So it's sort of hard to project at this point which sector will be best suited for RNG, and we really see the need for RNG changing over time. So for example, as Rob mentioned, the RINs market, the transportation market, is currently the primary outlet for RNG, where people use it the most in the heavy-duty transportation sector. But the stationary markets, such as the markets served by Washington Gas, are increasingly being seen as an opportunity. And so we expect those markets to grow a lot. And there's other markets too. For instance, the industrial sector is something that's relatively untapped right now for renewable natural gas. So yeah, we see a lot of growth in all those sectors, and I think the bottom line is it's hard to say. We'll see how it materializes in the future as to which sectors end up taking the different portions of RNG and the different types of RNG from different feedstock resources.
Okay, thanks, Sam. Melissa, back to you. Are you envisioning RNG for Maryland and Virginia customers, or just DC? What's the deployment plan?
Yeah. So our initial focus right now is the District of Columbia, but we do definitely envision it system-wide. That's how we purchase gas. That's how we do our planning. It's not, we typically purchase just for one jurisdiction. It's an integrated system. So ultimately, though we don't have, the same level of detail out there for other jurisdictions as we do for the district, we do envision it as a system-wide approach.
Okay, thank you. So do you have estimates? This is related to the earlier question about the tariff process, but do you have estimates as to the cost differences for RNG vis-a-vis other sources of gas?
Yeah, so
the price point, do you see how does it stack up?
Yeah, so renewable natural gas, if you have acquired all the environmental characteristics that go with it, is definitely more expensive than geologic gas. And so that is why we foresee layering it in over time. And it's also just one of many tactics we have to reduce emissions. And it's sort of the partner, if you will, as well to our tactic to really heavily promote energy efficiency. And so that's kind of an offset, if you will, to the more expensive price of renewable natural gas. So we have a number of tactics that we've layered together. And once we did that over time, I think you may remember that we also did cost this out, and we identified that a layered approach with multiple tactics over time that again supported a portfolio approach would be about $2.7 billion less than an approach that's just strictly focused on total electrification. So again, the tactics for decarbonization kind of need to be looked at on a portfolio basis and in comparison to alternatives.
Okay, so I have a related question that I'd like to follow up, Melissa. This just came in. What policy barriers do you see or do you envision what policy barriers exist and need to be overcome to start blending RNG into the system.
So
Part A, then the part B is Washington Gas planning to build an RNG plant in the District of Columbia?
So there are a number of things like, all decarbonization plans in early stage, new technologies, new fuels. There are definitely some policy challenges. We have something called a purchased gas cost. And so anytime we acquire fuel, it's reviewed by the Public Service Commission and the staff for good reason to protect our customers. But that is something that we will have to look at and evaluate how best to do this within a larger framework of decarbonization. And so we are actually, tonight we're working, after we get off the phone here, working on some comments, and we're working with many others in the district to try to put together a framework that makes sense for decarbonization and for evaluating these really kind of different approaches, things that are new and different, both for us and our friends on the electric side.
Thanks, Melissa. So look, everyone sees the time. It's gone so quickly. We're almost at the end of our time together this evening, but I do want to ensure that every one of our esteemed panelists has a moment to give any kind of a wrap-up comment if you would like. So Sam, we'll start with you.
Thanks, Marie. I just want to say thanks to everyone for having me this evening. And I've posted here in the chat a very good resource for those of you interested in getting a primer on RNG, the different policy issues, the different uses, the different feedstocks, and some of the greenhouse gas accounting principles that we've talked about here, which can be rather confusing. So I'd encourage everyone to look at that. And again, thanks for having me, and have a good night.
Thank you, Sam. Rob?
Yeah, I just want to say I'm very pleased to be on the panel and voice my support for RNG. In the last 5 years or so, RNG has become a very important part of our fuel mix, and it will continue to be more important in the future.
Thank you, Rob. Melissa?
So I just wanted to thank all of our guests that tuned in this evening to sort of sort through some of these newer fuel sources, technologies, plans, and thank Rob and Sam very much for all their expertise and contributions to the discussion. And as always, Marie, thank you for being our hostess with the mostest. So thank you so much.
Well, I want to thank this great panel. I want to thank Deshandra Jones, who I'm still sad we couldn't see.
We couldn't see her.
But what a great safety minute. And to echo Melissa, most of all, we want to thank everyone who took time from their very busy schedules to tune in this evening. And I hope you found this to be a productive dialogue, but we definitely want your feedback because we use the feedback from these sessions to work hard to make the successive sessions more useful for you. We hope you've enjoyed hearing a closer look inside the climate business plan, and we hope you've gained a better understanding of the plan and how it can serve as a roadmap to address climate change in the District of Columbia. So in keeping with our once every 6 month timeline, we expect that we'll be together in a meeting in January of 2022. But of course, in the meantime, please be in touch with Washington Gas with your questions or a request to come and visit your group to talk about these issues with community organizations, etc. So as we've done in the past, we'll post all presentations and an audio archive of the call to our website. It's www.WashingtonGasCBP for Climate Business Plan, www.WashingtonGasCBP.com. Thank you again and enjoy the rest of your evening.